My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm 37 years old, and until 2 months ago, I thought I was married to a man who respected me enough not to openly mock our marriage to his mistress. I've built a successful career as a commercial interior designer and have what most people would consider an enviable life in our waterfront home in Bellevue. But success in business doesn't prepare you for discovering that your husband of 12 years has been telling other women that you don't understand him. My husband, David Sterling, is a prominent real estate developer who specializes in luxury condominiums. He's charming, well-connected, and has the kind of confident demeanor that makes investors trust him with millions. He's also, as I recently discovered, the kind of man who maintains a double life with remarkable skill and absolutely no conscience. The unraveling began 3 months ago when I noticed changes in David's behavior. He became secretive about his phone, started working later hours, and began making disparaging comments about our relationship that felt different from normal marital complaints. "You're so focused on work, Victoria. Sometimes I feel like we're just business partners." At the time, I thought he was going through a midlife crisis. I tried to be more present, suggested couples therapy, planned romantic weekends. I made genuine efforts to reconnect with the man I'd loved for over a decade. What I didn't realize was that David was laying groundwork for justifying his affair. The her in question is Melissa Chen, a 28-year-old marketing coordinator at one of David's firms. She's intelligent, ambitious, and unfortunately believed that David was trapped in a loveless marriage. I discovered their relationship 3 weeks ago when David left his laptop open and a message from M popped up. "I can't wait to see you tonight. You deserve so much better than what you have at home." The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was working 60-hour weeks, David was telling another woman that I didn't understand him. Instead of confronting him immediately, I hired a private investigator. What Marcus Rodriguez uncovered was David telling Melissa that I was a cold, career-obsessed wife who had grown distant and showed no interest in his emotional needs. The reality was different. I had spent the last year trying desperately to reconnect with David, who had been pulling away to make room for his new relationship. But Marcus uncovered something else. David and Melissa were planning to move in together. David had been looking at apartments and told her he was preparing to ask me for a divorce. The right time, apparently, was never going to come. David was content to maintain his comfortable life with me while building a future with her. That's when I decided to take control. 3 weeks ago, while David was having dinner with Melissa, I walked into Tiffany & Co. I bought myself a stunning 3-carat diamond ring, a brilliant cut solitaire in platinum that cost more than most people's cars. But this wasn't retail therapy. This was strategic. I had Marcus document David's meeting with Melissa that evening, including photographs of them holding hands. The photos were time-stamped and location verified. That evening, I had the ring sized and began wearing it on my right hand. When David came home, I was reading in our living room, the ring catching the light. "That's a beautiful ring," he said. "Is it new?" "I bought it today. I decided I deserved something special." David seemed pleased, probably assuming I was treating myself to cope with our failing marriage. Over the next week, I wore the ring everywhere and started documenting everything about our marriage. I gathered financial records, photographed our assets, and consulted with Elena Vasquez, one of Seattle's most respected divorce attorneys. But I wasn't ready to file for divorce yet. First, I wanted David and Melissa to understand exactly what kind of woman they were dealing with. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Last Friday evening, David told me he had to attend a last-minute client dinner and would be home late. This had become his standard excuse for meeting Melissa, and I had grown tired of pretending to believe him. Marcus had informed me that David and Melissa would be having dinner at Canlis, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants.
They had apparently decided to celebrate some milestone in their relationship, and David wanted to take her somewhere special. I made a reservation at the same restaurant for 30 minutes after theirs. I spent extra time getting ready that evening, choosing a black Armani dress that I knew looked stunning on me, and I made sure the ring was prominently displayed on my right hand. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a successful, confident woman who knew her worth. When I arrived at Canlis, I could see David and Melissa at a corner table, leaning toward each other in intimate conversation. They looked like any other couple celebrating their relationship, which made what I was about to do feel both justified and necessary. I approached their table with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you hold all the cards. "David," I said pleasantly, "what a surprise to see you here." The look of panic that crossed his face was worth every dollar I had spent on the private investigator. Melissa looked confused, clearly trying to process who I was and why David looked like he had seen a ghost. David stammered, "I thought you were working late tonight." "I finished early and decided to treat myself to dinner," I replied, extending my hand toward Melissa. "I don't believe we've been introduced. I'm Victoria Sterling, David's wife." Melissa's face went white. She looked between David and me, clearly realizing that whatever David had told her about our marriage was about to be contradicted by reality. "This is Melissa," David said weakly. "She works on the Belltown project." "Of course," I said, sitting down in the empty chair at their table without being invited. "David's told me so much about you." This was a lie, but it served its purpose. Melissa looked even more confused, probably wondering why David's supposedly distant and uninterested wife knew about her. "Actually, I'm so glad I ran into you both. Melissa, David's been telling me how much you've been helping him with the project, and I wanted to thank you personally. It's so refreshing to meet a young woman who really understands David's work." I emphasized the word understands while making sure the ring on my right hand was visible as I gestured. "David was just telling me how supportive you've been," Melissa said carefully, checking clearly that conversation. "He says you're always so busy with your own career." "Oh, I am busy. Just this week, I bought myself this ring to celebrate landing the interior design contract for the new Four Seasons. David's always encouraging me to treat myself when I achieve something significant." I held up my hand, letting the ring catch the restaurant's ambient lighting. "He says I deserve beautiful things because I work so hard for them." David was staring at me with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. This was clearly not the narrative he had been sharing with Melissa. "It's stunning," she said, admiring the ring. "You have excellent taste." "Thank you. David always says I have impeccable judgment, especially when it comes to recognizing people's true intentions." The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone at the table.
What happened next was the most satisfying conversation of my adult life. "Melissa," I said, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how long have you been working with David on this project?" She glanced at David nervously. "About 8 months now." 8 months, I repeated thoughtfully. "That's interesting. David, didn't you tell me that the Belltown project was having some challenges around that time? Something about needing to bring in additional expertise?" David nodded reluctantly, clearly unsure where I was going with this. "Yes, that's right," I continued. "I remember, because that's when you started working those late evenings and weekend meetings. I was so proud of how dedicated you were to solving the problems." Melissa looked increasingly uncomfortable. The David she knew, the one who complained about an unsupportive wife, didn't match the man I was describing. "David's always been incredibly dedicated," I said to Melissa. "Sometimes I worry he works too hard,
Just last month, I convinced him to take a long weekend in Vancouver so he could relax. We had the most wonderful time reconnecting. This was true. David and I had gone to Vancouver for our anniversary, though he had been distracted and distant the entire trip. At the time, I thought he was stressed about work. Now I realized he was probably missing Melissa. "He mentioned you two went away," Melissa said quietly. "Did he?" I asked, surprised to hear that. "How sweet of him to share that. He must really trust you." The implication hung in the air. If David was truly in an unhappy marriage, why would he be taking romantic trips with his wife and then telling his colleagues about them? "Melissa," I said, leaning forward conspiratorially, "can I share something with you? David's been a little distant lately, and I've been worried that maybe I haven't been supportive enough of his work. Has he mentioned anything to you about our relationship? I'd hate to think I've been neglecting his needs." This was the moment of truth. Melissa looked at David, then back at me, clearly struggling with how to respond. He said that sometimes you don't understand the pressures of his job," she said carefully. "Oh," I said, looking genuinely concerned. "That's troubling. David, why haven't you talked to me about this? I thought we communicated well about work stress." David was trapped. He couldn't defend his comments to Melissa without admitting he had been complaining about our marriage, but he couldn't contradict them without making Melissa question everything he had told her. "It's not that serious, just normal work stuff." "Well, I certainly want to be more supportive," I said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. The gesture was intimate and possessive, and I made sure Melissa saw my wedding ring next to the new diamond. David's happiness means everything to me. I'd do anything to make sure he feels loved and understood at home. I could see the exact moment when Melissa began to realize she had been played. "Melissa," I said gently, "David's been lucky to have such a dedicated colleague. But I hope he hasn't been giving you the impression that our marriage is anything other than strong, because I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings." She looked at David with a mixture of confusion and growing anger. "David, what is she talking about?" "Victoria," David said, his voice strained, "maybe we should discuss this at home." "Oh, but I'm enjoying getting to know Melissa, and I think she deserves to understand the situation clearly." I turned back to Melissa. "You see, David and I have been married for 12 wonderful years. Yes, like any couple, we go through busy periods where work demands a lot of our time, but we're very much in love and very committed to our marriage." I held up both hands, showing my wedding ring and the new diamond side by side. "This ring I bought myself. It wasn't because I felt neglected or unappreciated. It was because my husband has taught me to value myself and to celebrate my achievements. David's always encouraged me to be independent and strong." Melissa was staring at David with a mixture of confusion and growing anger. "David, what is she talking about? Is this true?" David opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "I bought this ring," I continued, "because I realized I was married to a man who was making me question my own worth, but not in the way you might think." I leaned back in my chair, completely composed. You see, I discovered that my husband had been telling another woman that I didn't understand him, that I was cold and distant and unsupportive. And for a brief moment, I wondered if maybe I really had failed as a wife. Melissa's face was pale, but she was listening intently. But then I realized something important. I said, "A man who truly felt unloved and misunderstood wouldn't be celebrating his anniversary in Vancouver with his wife. He wouldn't be coming home to her every night and maintaining their social obligations and shared life. He wouldn't be living in the beautiful home she helped purchase and enjoying the lifestyle her income helped support." I paused, letting that sink in. A man who felt genuinely disconnected from his wife would ask for counseling or for a separation or for a divorce. He wouldn't create an elaborate fiction about his marriage to justify cheating on it. David finally found his voice. "Victoria, please." "Please what?" "Please don't tell Melissa the truth. Please continue pretending that I'm some sort of ice queen who drove you into another woman's arms." I turned to Melissa. "Has he told you he's planning to leave me?" She nodded slowly. "When?" She whispered. "Soon. He said he was waiting for the right time." The right time was 8 months ago. If David genuinely wanted out of our marriage, he could have asked for a divorce when your relationship began. Instead, he chose to maintain 2 relationships simultaneously, one with a wife who provides stability and financial security, and one with a younger woman who provides excitement and ego validation. I stood up, gathering my purse. "Melissa, you seem like an intelligent woman who deserves to be with someone who chooses you completely, not someone who keeps you as a secret while living a full life with someone else." I looked down at David. "And you deserve to make an honest choice about what you want your life to look like." Then I walked away, leaving them to figure out what they were going to do with the truth.
I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into the Four Seasons and ordered room service and a bottle of champagne. I sat in the luxurious suite I could afford with my own money, wearing the ring I had bought for myself, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: complete clarity about my own worth. David called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning, I went home to find him sitting at our kitchen table, looking like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk," he said. "Yes, we do," I agreed. "But first, I need you to understand something. I know about the apartment you've been looking at with Melissa. I know about the 8 months of lies you've told both of us. And I know that you've been planning to ask me for a divorce while continuing to live off the benefits of being married to me." David's face went white. "How do you—" "It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is what you're going to do now that everything is out in the open." "Victoria, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said calmly. "You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences." I sat down across from him, the diamond ring catching the morning light streaming through our kitchen windows. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to decide whether you want to fight for this marriage or end it. If you want to fight for it, we're going to counseling, you're going to end all contact with Melissa, and you're going to do the work necessary to rebuild the trust you've destroyed." I paused. "If you want to end it, we're going to do it honestly and fairly, without any more lies about why our marriage failed." "What about Melissa?" he asked. "What about her?" I replied. "She now knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of. If she chooses to stay with a man who lies to everyone in his life, that's her decision to make." David was quiet for a long time. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "I want a husband who chooses me every day, not someone who keeps me around for convenience while looking for something better. I want honesty, respect, and partnership. If you can't give me those things, then I want a divorce." "And if I choose counseling?" "Then you'd better mean it, because I will never again accept being treated like a placeholder in my own marriage." That was 2 months ago. David chose counseling, though I suspect his decision was motivated more by the prospect of an expensive divorce than by a genuine desire to save our marriage. We've been working with Dr. Patricia Williams, a therapist who specializes in infidelity recovery. The process has been difficult and sometimes brutal, but it's also been illuminating. David has had to confront the fact that his affair wasn't the result of problems in our marriage. It was the cause of them. His guilt and the energy he was putting into maintaining a double life had made him withdraw from me, which he then used to justify his behavior. He's also had to acknowledge that his portrayal of me to Melissa wasn't just unfair,
It was deliberately destructive. He had needed to make me the villain in order to see himself as the victim. As for Melissa, she ended their relationship the week after our encounter at Canlis. According to mutual friends, she was devastated to learn that she had been participating in the destruction of a marriage based on lies. She's since left David's company and moved to Portland for a fresh start. I still wear the ring I bought myself, though now it represents something different than it did when I first purchased it. Initially, it was a symbol of my independence and strength in the face of betrayal. Now it's a reminder that I am worthy of beautiful things, honest relationships, and complete respect. Whether my marriage survives remains to be seen. David is doing the work, but trust, once broken, doesn't heal quickly or easily. Some days I think we might make it through this stronger than before. Other days I wonder if I'm just postponing the inevitable. But either way, I know something now that I didn't know before. I am not a woman who can be diminished by someone else's lies. I am not someone who will accept being misrepresented or undervalued. And I am certainly not someone who will allow my husband to rewrite our love story to justify his betrayal. He told her my wife doesn't get me. So I showed her the ring I bought for myself that week, and in doing so, I showed both of them exactly who they were dealing with. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is simply to prove how wrong they were about you.
If this story shocked you, just wait for what's next. Leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and of course, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single notification.